Margaret Harlowe's fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the lighting on her latest painting. The opening of her first solo exhibition at the prestigious Caldwell Gallery was just 2 hours away, and everything needed to be perfect. After 15 years of rejection letters, late nights, and financial struggles, her moment had finally arrived. Need any help with that? Benjamin Chun, the gallery's assistant curator, appeared beside her. His genuine smile had been a rare comfort during the stressful installation process. I think I have got it, Margaret said, stepping back to examine the large canvas. The Oracle's Warning was her masterpiece, a swirling composition of deep blues and fiery oranges, with a haunting feminine figure emerging from the chaos. It had taken her nearly 8 months to complete. It is remarkable, Benjamin said. Eliza is going to flip when she sees the turnout tonight. We have had more RSVPs for your opening than any debut artist in the gallery's history. Margaret's stomach tightened at the mention of Eliza Caldwell, the gallery's owner. Their relationship had been complicated. As a rising star in the art world, Eliza had been Margaret's closest friend during their time at the Rhode Island School of Design 20 years ago. They had shared everything: secrets, dreams, and an unshakable belief that they would conquer the art world together. Until Daniel came along. The memories still stung after all these years. Daniel Harlowe, brilliant, charming, and devastatingly handsome, had transferred into their program during their final year. Both women had fallen for him, but he had chosen Margaret. Their whirlwind romance had culminated in marriage shortly after graduation, driving an irreparable wedge between the once inseparable friends. While Margaret had put her artistic ambitions on hold to support Daniel's corporate career and raise their daughter, Eliza had pursued her dreams relentlessly. She had opened the Caldwell Gallery 15 years ago, quickly establishing it as one of Boston's premier contemporary art spaces. Margaret had been shocked when, after all these years, Eliza had reached out with an offer to showcase her work. Let bygones be bygones, Eliza had written in her email. Your work deserves to be seen. Margaret, Benjamin's voice pulled her back to the present. Sorry to interrupt your contemplation, but there is someone here to see you. Margaret turned, expecting to see her husband, or perhaps her 20-year-old daughter Lily. Instead, she found herself face to face with Eliza Caldwell. Time had been kind to Eliza. At 42, she remained strikingly beautiful, her dark hair now styled in an elegant bob, her slender frame draped in a tailored black pantsuit that screamed success and confidence. Maggie, Eliza said, using Margaret's old nickname as she air-kissed both cheeks. Everything looks absolutely stunning. Thank you for this opportunity, Margaret replied, striving to keep her voice steady. It means more than you can know. Benjamin, be a dear and give us a moment, Eliza said without taking her eyes off Margaret. The assistant nodded and disappeared into the gallery's back office. Once they were alone, Eliza's smile shifted into something more genuine, almost wistful. I meant what I said. Your work is extraordinary. You always were the more talented one. Margaret blinked in surprise. That is not what you said the last time we spoke. We were young and foolish. I said many things I regret. Eliza walked slowly around the Oracle's Warning, studying it from different angles. This piece in particular, the emotion is palpable. The critics are going to love it. I hope so, Margaret said cautiously. Despite Eliza's apparent warmth, she could not quite shake the sense that something was off. Daniel will be here tonight? Eliza asked, her tone carefully casual. He will. He has been incredibly supportive. How wonderful. Eliza checked her watch. I should let you finish preparing. The caterers need supervision anyway. We will catch up properly at the reception. As Eliza walked away, Margaret exhaled slowly, unaware she had been holding her breath. Something about the interaction left her uneasy, but she pushed the feeling aside. Tonight was about her art, not decades-old drama. The opening exceeded all expectations. By 8 o'clock, the gallery was packed with critics, collectors, and art enthusiasts. Margaret floated through the crowd in a daze, accepting congratulations and discussing her techniques and inspirations. 3 of her pieces already displayed red sold dots, including the Oracle's Warning, which had been purchased by an anonymous collector for an amount that made Margaret's head spin. To Margaret Harlowe, Eliza announced, raising a champagne flute as she addressed the crowd. Whose extraordinary talent reminds us why we fall in love with art in the first place. Boston's art scene is richer for your return. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Margaret smiled and nodded in gratitude, though she noted that Daniel had still not arrived. He had texted earlier claiming a last-minute meeting would make him late, but it was unlike him to miss such an important moment in her life. As the evening progressed, Margaret found herself increasingly distracted by her husband's absence. She had called and texted several times with no response. "Is everything all right?" Benjamin asked, noticing her checking her phone again. "My husband is unusually late," she admitted. "I am sure he will be here soon," Benjamin reassured her. "In the meantime, there is someone very important who wants to meet you. Francis Delacroix from the MFA is here." The next hour passed in a blur as Margaret spoke with curators, reporters, and potential buyers. Yet Daniel's absence remained a constant, gnawing worry. By 10 o'clock, as the crowd began to thin, she decided to try calling him one last time. As she stepped into the quiet hallway leading to the gallery's restrooms, she noticed Eliza emerging from her office, looking slightly flushed. Their eyes met, and something in Eliza's expression, a mixture of triumph and guilt, sent a chill down Margaret's spine. "Wonderful evening, is it not?" Eliza said, smoothing her hair. Before Margaret could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from an unknown number, with an attached image. With a growing sense of dread, she opened it. The photo showed Daniel in what was clearly Eliza's office, his shirt unbuttoned, Eliza in his arms. The timestamp showed it had been taken just 15 minutes ago. The text read, "Thought you should know history repeats itself. He came to me this time." Margaret's world tilted. She looked up to find Eliza watching her, a slight smile playing on her lips. "You," Margaret whispered, the pieces falling horribly into place. "I simply took back what should have been mine," Eliza said softly. "The exhibition was never about your talent, Maggie. It was about proving I could take everything from you, just as you once took everything from me." The perfect evening shattered around Margaret like glass. She stumbled backward, struggling to breathe as the full scope of Eliza's revenge dawned on her. The gallery show, the reconnection, it had all been calculated to maximize her humiliation. "Why now?" Margaret managed to ask. "After 20 years? Revenge, like fine art, requires patience and perfect timing," Eliza replied. "I wanted you to have your moment of triumph before the fall. More poetic that way, do not you think?" Margaret stood frozen as Eliza glided past her and back into the gallery, the perfect hostess once more. Through the haze of shock and betrayal, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. This was not over. The following weeks passed in a nightmarish blur. Daniel confessed to a 6-month affair with Eliza, initiated when he had gone to the gallery to secretly arrange Margaret's exhibition as a surprise. Eliza had seduced him with practiced ease, leveraging their past connection and his midlife insecurities. "I never meant to hurt you," Daniel said, his handsome face crumpled in shame. "It just happened." "Things do not just happen, Daniel," Margaret replied, her voice devoid of emotion. "You made choices." Repeatedly. They separated, with Daniel moving into a downtown apartment. Their daughter, Lily, was furious with her father, but equally confused by Margaret's eerie calm. What no one realized was that beneath her composed exterior, Margaret was meticulously planning her response. The Caldwell Gallery exhibition had indeed launched Margaret's career. Ironically, Eliza's revenge had backfired in that regard. The scandal only increased interest in Margaret's work. 3 prestigious galleries contacted her about potential shows, and a major collector commissioned a series of paintings. But professional success did little to salve the wound of personal betrayal. For Margaret, this was not just about a cheating husband. Men, as her mother had often said, could be disappointingly predictable in their weaknesses. No, this was about Eliza's calculated destruction of their family, the perversion of Margaret's artistic triumph, and the 20-year grudge that had festered into something monstrous. Through careful investigation, Margaret discovered that the anonymous buyer, who had purchased the Oracle's warning, was none other than Eliza herself. The painting now hung in her penthouse apartment, a trophy of her victory. Margaret also learned something else, something far more valuable for her purposes. Eliza's gallery, despite its prestigious reputation, was financially overextended. She had taken out significant loans to purchase the adjacent building, planning an expansion that would cement the Caldwell Gallery as the premier art space in New England. The project's success hinged on securing the Harrington Foundation's annual grant, $1 million endowment that would be decided in just 2 months. As chance would have it, Margaret's college roommate Victoria now sat on the Harrington Foundation's board. One lunch and a tearful recounting of Eliza's manipulations later, Margaret had gained a powerful ally. But that was just the beginning. 6 weeks after her exhibition, Margaret reached out to Daniel with an unexpected olive branch. "I would like to talk," she told him. Not about reconciliation, but about moving forward civilly. They met at their favorite Italian restaurant in the North End. Daniel looked awful, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. "Eliza ended things," he admitted after his second glass of wine. "She said now that you knew, the thrill was gone." Margaret nodded sympathetically while thinking, just as I expected. She had known Eliza well once, understood her patterns. Eliza did not want Daniel. She had only wanted to take him from Margaret. "I am sorry," Margaret said, and meant it. Despite everything, seeing Daniel so broken brought her no joy. "I have destroyed everything for nothing," he said bitterly. Margaret reached across the table and took his hand. "Not everything," she said. "But I need something from you." 3 days later, Daniel had a meeting with Jonathan Caldwell, Eliza's ex-husband and silent partner in the gallery. Though their marriage had ended a decade ago, Jonathan retained a 30% ownership stake, a fact Eliza preferred to keep quiet, as it undermined her image as a self-made success. "She did what?" Jonathan asked incredulously as Daniel detailed Eliza's scheme. "She seduced me specifically to hurt my wife," Daniel confirmed. "She admitted it, said it was revenge for something that happened in college." Jonathan shook his head. "That tracks with the Eliza I know. Everything is personal with her, and she never forgets a slight." "But why are you telling me this?" "Because I believe she is mismanaging the gallery," Daniel said, sliding across a folder containing financial information that Margaret had compiled from public records and Benjamin's discreet assistance. "The expansion project is built on financial quicksand. If the Harrington grant falls through, which I have reason to believe it will, the gallery could face bankruptcy." Jonathan paled as he examined the documents. His 30% stake represented a significant portion of his investment portfolio. "What do you suggest?" Daniel outlined the plan Margaret had devised, a plan that would save the gallery while removing Eliza from power. The night of the Harrington Foundation's annual gala arrived. As a featured artist whose work had been acquired by several board members, Margaret received an invitation. So had Eliza, whose gallery had been a finalist for the grant 3 years running. Margaret arrived in a stunning emerald gown that complemented her auburn hair. She moved through the crowd with newfound confidence, accepting compliments about her recent successes. When she spotted Eliza across the room, she smiled and raised her champagne glass in a mock toast. Confusion flickered across Eliza's face, replaced quickly by suspicion. She had expected Margaret to avoid the event entirely. Her unease grew when she saw Margaret deep in conversation with Victoria Harrington. The foundation's chairman clinked his glass for attention. "Before we announce this year's major grant recipient, we have a special presentation. The Harrington Foundation is proud to unveil a commissioned work by one of Boston's most exciting artistic talents." The crowd applauded as a large covered canvas was wheeled to the center of the room. Margaret stepped forward alongside the chairman. "Ms. Harlow has created a piece that captures the foundation's commitment to nurturing artistic vision," he announced. The covering was removed, revealing a stunning portrait, not of the foundation's founder as expected, but of Eliza Caldwell. The painting captured her in an unguarded moment of naked ambition and calculation, beautiful yet terrible in her intensity. It was masterfully done, with such emotional clarity that several guests gasped. Eliza froze, her face draining of color as she recognized the scene depicted in the background. Her office at the gallery, with subtle hints of her encounter with Daniel. Nothing explicit, Nothing that could be called defamatory, but unmistakable to those who knew. I call it The Collector, Margaret explained to the hushed room. It explores how some people collect not just art, but people and moments, consuming them for personal satisfaction rather than appreciation. As the crowd murmured and turned to look at Eliza, Jonathan Caldwell stepped forward. On behalf of the newly restructured Caldwell Harlow Gallery, I would like to announce that Ms. Margaret Harlow will be joining us as co-director, overseeing our new Emerging Artists program. The shocked whispers grew louder. Eliza pushed through the crowd toward them, her composure cracking. "What is the meaning of this?" she hissed. "Just a changing of the guard," Jonathan replied calmly. "The board meeting was this morning. Your expansion plans were rejected as fiscally irresponsible. Given the gallery's financial situation, we voted to bring in new leadership." "You cannot do this," Eliza sputtered. "The gallery is mine." 60% of it is mine now, Jonathan corrected. "I purchased an additional 30% from your other investors. They were quite eager to sell once they reviewed the books." Margaret stepped closer, keeping her voice low. "You taught me an important lesson, Eliza. Revenge, like fine art, requires patience and perfect timing. I simply took back what should have been mine: my dignity, my career, my future." The chairman of the foundation reclaimed everyone's attention. "And now, I am pleased to announce that this year's Harrington Foundation grant goes to the Caldwell Harlow Gallery for their innovative Emerging Artists initiative." The crowd erupted in applause. Margaret accepted congratulations with grace, watching from the corner of her eye as Eliza slipped out of the gala, alone and defeated. One month later, Margaret stood in what had once been Eliza's office, now transformed into her own creative space. The gallery's relaunch had been a tremendous success, featuring a diverse group of talented new artists alongside established names. Daniel had returned to their family home, though not to their marriage. They had found a new arrangement as co-parents and friends, with him living in the guest house, while they both worked through their individual healing processes. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Benjamin entered, carrying a familiar wrapped canvas. "This just arrived for you. The courier said you had been expecting it." Margaret nodded, taking the package. "Thank you, Benjamin. That will be all for today." Once alone, she carefully unwrapped the Oracle's warning, her masterpiece that Eliza had purchased as a trophy. Attached was a note in Eliza's elegant handwriting. "You win. You always were the better artist." Margaret hung the painting on her wall, stepping back to admire it properly. The swirling chaos and the emerging feminine figure seemed different now. Less a warning and more a transformation. She had created it during her darkest days, never imagining how prophetic it would become. She did not hate Eliza anymore. That emotion, like so many others, had been transformed through her art into something more valuable: understanding. They had both been wounded, both sought validation through destructive means. The difference was that Margaret had found her way back to creation rather than destruction. She opened her sketchbook and began to draw, already envisioning her next series, Metamorphosis. After all, the best revenge was not just success but growth.